6.6, simple interest. Interest is the amount of money paid for the use of money borrowed. A man invests $2,000 in savings plan that pays 7% per year. How much money will be in the account at the end of 1 year? We could solve this by using the percent equation that we learned in the previous section. We know that he has $2,000 in savings plan. It pays 7% per year, and that would be 100% plus 7% total. I want to know how much would be in the account at the end of 1 year. So my A would be what I want to know. P is going to be 107% as a decimal, 1.07, and my whole would be $2,000 that I started with. A equals P times W. A equals 1.07 times 2,000. And when I multiply them, I get $2,140, which would be in the account at the end of the year. Now, in reality though, we have lots of different parts to interest and simple interest. There is a formula for simple interest. We talk about simple interest and we call it I. I is the interest or money that is earned over time for the bank. P, we're going to start with an equal sign. P is going to stand for principal, and that's what you start with. That's your starting principal or starting borrowing amount. Percent per year is a decimal rate, a decimal form of a percent, and the percent in this case we're going to use the letter R. We're also going to be multiplying each of these. So far we've got I, which is equal to, the interest is equal to the principal times the rate multiplied by time. And time is always in year format. So I'm going to circle this to bring some announcement to that because a year format. So for months, you would say the number of months out of 12 months in a year. Remember, days of the year, there are 365 days in the year, or years is a whole number. Interest earned and account balance. You put $500 into a savings account. The account earns 3% simple interest per year. What is the interest earned after 3 years, and what is the balance after 3 years? We're going to start with the letters. I equals P R T. What do you know? You put $300 into a savings account. That's a starting balance, so that's your principal. It earns 3% simple interest. That's a rate. So we have 3% as a decimal, 0.03 because we divide by 100. It wants to know the interest, so I, after 3 years. That would be my T. So let's solve for part A. I equals PRT. We substitute in what we know. We know that the principal was 500, the rate is 0.03, and the time is 3 years. We multiply them all together, and we get that our interest is $45. And that's the answer for part A. What is the interest earned? To find the B part, the balance, we need to know that the balance of the account is equal to the principal plus the interest added together. So what is 500 plus 45 added together? $545. An account earns simple interest. Find the interest earned and find the balance of the account. We have $1,200 at 5.6% for 4 years. So $1,200 is my principal at 5.6%, that's a rate, and 4.6 is years, T. I want to know interest earned, I, and find the balance. So the same as what we just did. Let's start by labeling everything we know. I, P, R, and T. We know we don't know our interest, that's what we're looking for. Principal is $1,200, $1,200. 5.6% as a decimal, divide by 100, and you get 0.056. And T is 4 years. We substitute in what we know for part A. I equals PRT. I equals 1,200 times 0.056 times 4. When I multiply them all together, I get my I, which is equal to $268.80. And that's my part. That's what my interest earned is. To figure out my balance B, I'm going to make sure that I know I'm going to add together my interest and my principal. So when I add together 1,200 plus $268.80, I add them up and I get my total, which would be decimal point 80, $1,468.80. A student takes out an emergency loan for tuition, books, and supplies. The loan is paid for, the loan is for $600 at an interest rate of 4%. So this would be my principal. This would be my rate. So we can already start with what we know and start to fill those things in. We know the principal, they got $600 for 4%. How much interest does the student pay if the loan is paid back in 60 days? There's my time. So 60 days needs to be in years, so it needs to be out of 365. I can simplify this by dividing by 5 to get 12 over 73. Sometimes it's easier to have a fraction or just convert it to a decimal. And that means that I'm looking for, I need to make this into my decimal as well, 0.04, but it means that I'm looking for my I. I need to know how much interest does the student pay back. So I have I equals PRT. I equals 600 times 0.04. And then in the calculator, I would make sure I use parentheses and or solve for 12 divided by 73 or 60 divided by 365. And when I solve that, and sometimes I would put this in the calculator first. So for example, if I was going to use my own phone, this is what I would be putting in to my calculator. I would be putting in 12 divided by 73 to get this number first, and then I would multiply it by 0.04, then I would multiply it by 600, and now I have my answer 3.945, and I'm going to write that out. We have to remember this is money, so the 5 tells the 4 to go up, so my interest that I would need to pay is $3.95. Again, if this number had been my 60 out of 365, I would have done that first. So 60 divided by 365. It gives you the same number that you get for 12 over 73. I would hit enter. Then the calculator takes that same number typically. If you have a good calculator and it keeps the memory, you're gonna now take that number and multiply it by your 0.04, multiply by your 600. And so I'm working backwards, which is fine because that's commutative property, to get my decimal and then my answer. Let's look at example 5. You put $1,000 in an account. This is solving for interest rate. You put $1,000 into an account. The account earns $100 simple interest in 4 years. What is the rate? So when you put money in, that's your principal. When you earn money, that's your interest. You have 4 years, that's your time. I want to know the rate, which is R. I equals PRT is my equation. I know I earned $100. I started with 1,000. My rate is what I'm looking for, and my time is 4 years. I substituted into what I know for my equation. I equals PRT. So 100 equals 1,000 times R times my T, which is 4. I'm going to combine by multiplying 4 times 1,000. So I get 100 equals 4,000 R. I'm going to divide by 4,000 on both sides. When I do, I get R equals 0.025. Remember, that's a decimal. We need to multiply by 100. Move the decimal 2 times, and I get my rate of 2.5%. You put $1,000 into a savings account. That's a principal. The account earns $31.50 simple interest. It took 6 months to get there. That's time. But be careful, it's months. What is the interest rate? R. Let's write it out. I equals P R T. I know my interest is $31.50. I know my principal is 1,000. My rate is what I don't know. And my time is 6 months. Remember, it has to be out of years, so 12 months in a year. I know if I put this in the calculator, 6 divided by 12 gives me 0.5, and that's a lot easier to deal with. So I'm going to write my equation. I equals PRT. I'm going to substitute in what I know. 31.5 or 50 equals 1,000 times my R times my T. I'm going to combine my 2 items. So I have 31.50 equals half of 1,000 is 500 R. I'm going to divide by 500 on both sides. And when I do, I get 0.063 is my rate. But remember, if your rate is 0.063, you probably haven't multiplied by 100 yet. You need to multiply by 100 and you get your rate, which is 6.3%. You borrow $600 to buy a violin. The simple interest rate is 15%. You pay off the loan after 5 years. How much do you pay for the loan? So you buy for $600. So let's write out our equation. I equals P R T. You borrowed $600. That's a principal. The interest rate is 15%. As a decimal, 0.15. You pay off the loan after 5 years. It wants to know how much do you pay total, which is your interest plus your principal for the loan. We don't know how much interest we paid yet. So let's figure that out. I equals PRT. I equals 600 times 0.15 times 5 years. I multiply them together and I get $45. To find my total for the loan, I'm going to add $45 plus my $600 for my principal, and I get a grand total of $645 that I paid for my loan. And that is 6.6 interest.